What happens when technical and non-technical teams can't communicate effectively, or even worse, collaborate? Why is data storytelling a critical skill for every employee, and how can they learn it? In today's episode of Data Humanized, we'll answer these questions with Tamanna Haque, lead data scientist at Jaguar Land Rover. Please enjoy my conversation with Tamanna. Welcome to Data Humanized, presented by Correlation One. In each episode, we bring you the unique perspective of enterprise leaders at the intersection of technology and humanity who are leading cultural transformation through the power of data. You'll also hear the real-life stories of learners who have graduated from the Data Skills for All program and are embarking on new career pathways, creating a more inclusive, collaborative, and effective workforce. I'm your host, Mark Palmer. Please visit the Correlation One website for more about how data literacy transforms enterprises, and tell your friends about the Data Humanized podcast. Good communication between data teams and the rest of the company is crucial for success, especially with the surging use of AI across nearly all industries. So how effective are data leaders at aligning their teams and delivering business value? In short, not very well. 56% of data analytics leaders say their teams are ineffective in providing value to their own organization. And just under half of data leaders cite the lack of skills across the workforce as the biggest challenge to success for their organizations. That's according to a Gartner survey from just last year. Now, workers don't feel confident either. Accenture found that only 21% of the workforce is confident in their data literacy skills. It's now essential that every member of the workforce be able to analyze, interpret, and communicate data-driven insights. So how are enterprises tackling this challenge? Today, I'm speaking with Tamanna Haque, lead data scientist at Jaguar Land Rover. We'll learn about her efforts to increase data literacy at JLR and the importance of data advocates across large organizations. Hi, Tamanna. Nice to meet you, and thanks for joining us on Data Humanized.
Thanks, Mark. Nice to meet you as well.
You were recently at the Formula E Prix in London, an electric single-seat racing championship. You work for Jaguar, which we'll talk a lot about this morning. You're a fan of the industry and the technology. Where did your interest begin, and what inspired that interest?
Thanks, Mark. So I've always been interested in cars, and specifically the Jaguar brand. For some reason, Jaguar caught my eye since I was 9 years old. I always found them an attractive and luxury line with a sporty pedigree, and I always found it to be a very aspirational brand and a source of motivation. I started to follow the brand and attend previews and invitation-only experience days, and I've even written about the brand as well. And I don't care to admit, but it's been 20 years now since I've been following the brand, and I've lived through not only model transformations, but also very significant brand transformations as well. And I say this from a humble place, where I got my first Jaguar at 22, which allowed me to be hands-on with the product daily. And I absolutely loved the sense of occasion and experience each time. And it was the little touches in the product which made the experience feel very alive and not just simply a driving machine to me.
So it's amazing. 2022, your first Jaguar. That's for, you really love this brand. This is really cool. And now you're a data scientist there, which is really interesting, right? Can you tell us about your role as a lead data scientist at Jaguar?
Yeah. So my team actually sits within product engineering. I've always worked in product, and last year I was promoted to lead data scientist. I was an original member of this team in Manchester, my home city, and we use data science and AI and apply it on data from the connected cars of participating customers. And essentially my work makes our cars and our experiences with them better. And because I've been a customer before joining, I feel at one with the customer that I work for today and have been from a young age. Very passionate and in love with the product. So that means that when I'm working, I've got a great deal of commitment for my customers and for JLR.
Great. So you work with the data that's coming off the cars. Can't wait to hear more about this. And so, what's your personal take on that intersection of data and storytelling as a discipline, and what drives your interest and motivates you to advocate for it at Jaguar Land Rover and beyond? Actually, you're advocating it here to a much wider audience. What drives your interest in that?
I think data storytelling as a concept is really important because all that hard work that you spend on a technical product needs the soft skills around it to get it over the line. And our craft, as I mentioned, is data science, which is now a highly popular and trendy topic. So much so that I don't even need to say artificial intelligence. I can just say AI and well these days. But it is still a very, very complex and multifaceted area. And machine learning models are trained to mimic the human brain and make decisions on its own without us explicitly programming what the optimal result should be. Now, explainability of this to the business is key. We need to be able to influence our stakeholders and also ensure that our models and solutions are understood. And if you can't tell a story effectively, this will be really hard to convey.
Yeah, this is a real central theme of the podcast, which is what you're calling soft skills, right? We talk about it as well. The title of the show is Data Humanized, right? So we talk about data humanists, right? Because so to your point, it's not just about the technology, but it's about the skills of being able to translate that into storytelling and decision intelligence. So how do you accomplish that at Jaguar Land Rover in terms of taking that data and humanizing it, if you will, to decision makers and in the direction that you take the business in?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, is a really big organisation. So whilst on one hand it seems like a challenge to influence widely and help the data literacy journey, it gives rise to a lot of opportunities as well. So we have a few networks that we curate and create content for on a regular basis, some of them from a diversity angle. And the other thing that we do is hold events. There's a lot of internal events which are regularly held, but also there might be some external events as well. And there's a lot of things that we're doing from the social space where we are actively increasing awareness of data. So these are getting people together, communicating the value of data and how we do it. But from the other side, our team, we are also fostering a data science community of practice as well. And in the very essence of a community of practice, it's all about getting aspiring or already like-minded people together, creating a really big network and community, and just helping others either join the journey or accelerate on that journey as well. So that's a really big focus for us.
Yeah, it's a huge remit, and it's kind of one of the tricks about it of getting it done effectively. I think is how do you make that happen? So maybe we could talk about your role in the process. How do you personally get involved in that community, either social or being involved in external and internal events? Take us through some of the details of how you get that done inside of Jaguar Land Rover.
So I was actually one of the first members of the data science team in Manchester in the UK. So being there from both the start of the data journey and the AI journey meant a lot of responsibilities to bring others along with, and that's either my peers or that's my superiors, and help shape the direction of the team. So more tangibly, I've designed and delivered training to people across the business, not just in engineering, which is where I sit, and done this wider as well. I've done guest lectures at university, and I've got more to come. And I've been focused on the topics of R for data visualization, which is similar to Python, as some of the audience might know. Even called it Super Visuals with R to reference our top performance cars, just really connecting it to the domain in which we sit. And I've also been training in Python and machine learning as well. I've been using data for good, created a new role in JLR's Women in Engineering Committee to report on diversity-related KPIs, and I've set up a Women in AI network as well, which data storytelling is a key theme within. And lastly, Mark, I do a lot of public speaking about data and the connected car and AI, which boosts my skills as well as others in the audience.
I'm sure everybody wants to hear about all those things, but connected cars are so fascinating. I took my first ride in a Waymo last week, which is a fully autonomous driving car out in Arizona here in the States that was spawned from the Google projects. And it's pretty cool. Not pervasive yet, but certainly something I know a lot of people are thinking about. So, well, that's fascinating. Yeah, speaking at universities, women in engineering, getting a sense for the diversity of people touching data. So, Tam, talk about what resources you advise up and coming data storytellers to start with. There's so much. There's only so much you can probably do when you go out and teach a class or engage with social media. There's so much stuff out there. For example, I'm a huge fan of our National Public Radio here in the States. There's a program called The Future of Storytelling. The Data Visualization Society is doing some great work with their Information is Beautiful awards, and folks like Cassie Kosakoff and Towards Data Sciences. But what do you suggest people follow and read, or maybe go through skills training programs like the Correlation One's program of Data Skills for All? What do you guide people toward to get some self-directed acumen built up around data skills?
And this is a great question, because the fact we're even asking this, I kind of think data science as such a fast, rapid moving space that keeping up with the field is almost a little bit like a lifestyle, not just a career. So in light of that, I'm thinking of different ways I can keep up that doesn't feel like I'm sat at work keeping up with different concepts. So I definitely use Twitter a lot. And actually, the first time I heard of generative AI recently was on Twitter. And specifically there, I like the way Alison Horst illustrates technical data science concepts into fun illustrations, which I think is quite key for data storytelling. I like Mara Avery on Twitter. Actually, it's called X now. I keep forgetting. And there's a couple of other resources on Twitter as well. There's a few other mediums which I like to follow data science concepts in. So if you want to break from the screen, the Data Scientist magazine, which is a physical as well as a digital magazine, is great. And I like to hear about different people from different levels in the field, not just from the thought leaders, but wider. There's a real world data science website as well. So I'm very much a commercially driven and minded data scientist. So this website speaks to me. But the value of face-to-face meetups is great as well, right? So for the up-and-coming people in data science, or those who just want to keep their knowledge topped up and fresh, meetups are great. I do a lot of this in my home city in Manchester, which is where I'm based and work. And there's a few different meetups that I like, such as Our Ladies, which also has a presence in multiple cities as well. So you're part of a local community, but that local community also has a global community as well. So yeah, there's various ways you can keep up with data. And it's quite important to do that if you're not going to get left behind in this field.
It is one of my favorite questions too, because every time we ask it, I learn something new as well, right? And I really follow this a lot at different levels. So those are great
pointers. And the other thing that's so unique, as I'm sure you would say, is that it's such a diverse field, right? There's everything from generative AI to all the kind of cool new stuff to automation to really technical level stuff, which you've given us some really good pointers to sort of chief data officers and everything in the middle and around the edges, and so many books coming out. So those are great pointers. Thank you. So let's shift to talk about data storytelling, because when the storytelling doesn't happen effectively, and it's not just data storytelling, as some of our guests on this show have talked about it, but it's really about storytelling in general, right? Like the data is there to sort of enhance the stories. But what happens when things? Where have you seen disconnects, I guess, is the way to ask the question. What problems can communication and collaboration help overcome within the organization?
I've seen this happen at various points in my career, and sometimes the wrong decision might happen if the data-driven insights are either not provided clearly, or I'm putting the onus on the consumer now. If the user of the insight lacks the ability to translate the insight into an action. So there's a real need for users to have some level of data literacy. It's not solely on the provider, the analysts, the data scientists, to be able to communicate the data in the most effective way. Certainly helps to bridge the gap.
Well, for sure. I mean, how do you, one of the challenges of storytelling is explaining its value, right? Especially to decision makers. And I know that's one of your key roles here. Can you give us an example of where those, storytelling skills enabled a better decision-making process based on data, and maybe something about the value of it, and it kind of this is a question we get a lot, which is how you just articulate the ROI of analytics and storytelling within an organization to folks that might not be big fans of the field and following it aggressively.
It's a good question, Mark. What I'm finding is the trend is we are seeing a lot of our stakeholders be more aware of the value of data-driven decision-making. But it's true that not everyone is at the same stage of that journey. Project-wise, I've used data always from participating customers. I like to just make that obvious, to systematically understand where the most valuable locations are for the development of new charge points, thus preparing for increased electrification and our customers' needs when they switch their petrol or their diesel vehicle to a pure electric vehicle. Now, there's a lot of responsibility riding on the insights given there. So we need to make sure that the work has been done robustly, because there's a significant level of investment at play. But the way that I communicate that story as well is critical, so that the stakeholders consuming it and making decisions are bought into the insights and recommendations that I'm giving them. So that's one specific example of work that I did on the tail end of last year, coming into this year, for various different major markets. So that was quite a big piece. And the way that I communicated had to have a good level of influence and leadership. And one of my highlights this year.
Excellent. So talk about, how we scale this acumen, right? Or maybe how you assess any gaps in storytelling skills, and almost like think of it like a doctor, right? We had a guest on the show actually from another automotive company that talked about this data dojo model, where they kind of assign different levels of data skills and acumen, and try to find the gaps in the organization. How do you go about thinking about where you need to apply your energy to help bring the culture up a level in terms of that acumen?
No. there's two different levels that we're doing that at. There's the project level, and every project that we work on, we're doing it with a business owner or a stakeholder. But that's a little bit easier because it's more tactile, the way that we assess that problem and treat it. But we're also doing it at a wider level. So when you talk about culture, that's us trying to increase the data literacy and in the wider business. On a project level, it's quite easy. If we're making insights or recommendations, which should translate into action, we always want to know what the action was, what was the value from that. And if the action didn't follow the recommendation, we know that there's still a need to influence decision makers to act in a data-driven way, or at least in part. And that also translates upwards as well. We can look at it at a departmental level. Are there teams that we are engaging heavily with or not? The teams that we are already engaging with very much, then they're probably already using data to add value and back some of their decisions. Teams that we're engaging less with or not at all, then it's probably something that we'd look to help on that journey. And for us, it would be a growth area as well.
So, you're in an enviable position in that the organization is committed to data acumen groups, your group, and your role in this. What would you give for advice to peers and enterprises who haven't yet prioritized data storytelling skills improvement in the workforce? What lessons have you learned there at Jaguar Land Rover that they might learn from?
I feel very passionately about this because I've seen a big shift in companies being quite enthused by AI, given recent developments in OpenAI, for example, and the hype that we are still experiencing. But before a business can enter that realm for themselves, there's still that full data and digital transformation journey. Data and appreciation of how to understand it and work with it comes before AI and generative AI and all that cool jazz. So, that's my advice, is set the foundations, build the culture, and have a vision that goes from top down, bottom top, whichever way you look at it. All those foundations need to be put in place first.
Yeah, without data, there's no data science, and there's no cool generative AI, right? So, so remind people excited about the hype of generative AI that you got to get your data right first. I'm fascinated by this by storytelling. I love to ask this question because, in a sense, the storytelling is kind of one half of the coin of dealing with getting value out of data. There's also the story finding. So what's more important, the story finding or the storytelling?
So in different parts of my career, I've been developing these skills, and I would say that the more advanced that I became in my career, the more easier I found it to find a story that was appropriate. What's more important, though, none more than the other. The message has to have substance, or it isn't worth your superior's time and wider business time. But on the other hand, if you can't relay it concisely and impactfully, it just gets lost in translation, and it wasn't worth your time or your superior's time. So time is of the essence, and the message that you give has to be valuable, and both of them are very important. It's hard to know what is more important. So I've said none more than the other.
So take us through a decision in your world. Your story finding, the storytelling workflow, if you will, kind of maybe something about like the way you think about tackling a new data problem. Maybe what tools you use. So sort of like, how do you think about that when you're faced with another challenge you've been asked to look at? What's your workflow look like?
Like I alluded, I do think story finding skills it's a slightly higher level of thinking than storytelling, and it requires good awareness of the industry that you're in, and the business itself, its strategy, its offerings, its products, its customers. Basically, good commercial and corporate awareness can really assist you in finding the story from the insights. And it also serves as validation. If your insights or data are correct or potentially not and inaccurate. It took me a while to develop this workflow in my previous company, but I became really good at my job once I did, and it definitely aids my confidence here. So my story finding to storytelling workflow, basically it's boosted by my commercial and corporate and domain knowledge as well. So it's kind of like the softer side of a technical role and field. Super important, and I think a lot of people neglect those areas.
So let's shift to the automotive industry. Jaguar Land Rover recently invested almost $3 billion into EV development. Your chief creative officer described the upcoming vehicles as embracing four pillars: exuberance, fearlessness, uniqueness, and progressiveness. I'm interested in how is data involved in setting these objectives in an informed way that helped with the design of the initiative, or maybe within the manufacturing of the cars? And do you see these principles as transferable ideas for data storytelling?
Thanks, Mark. I really love all of these pillars, and I just feel fortunate to be working here at a time when Jaguar is going through a dramatic brand transformation. So just had to put that out there. And back to your question, yeah, I do agree that these principles are transferable ideas for data storytelling. Really like all four of the pillars, and I can't wait for you all to see the designs of the new Jaguar. But yeah, back to the question. Yes, to all. I think all of these qualities translate to data storytelling. So fearlessness. Sometimes the stakeholders looking at the insights might not like your narrative if it doesn't serve their interest. And I've been through this at various stages in my career. But I enjoy the challenge of changing attitudes through data. So yeah. And progressiveness, yes, data does help the business move ahead and realize its goals through data-driven insights and solutions. So absolutely, progressiveness. Exuberance. I think a lot of people miss out on this when they're telling a story, but have some energy. It's part of my personal brand. Be lively when you're engaging, which will really help to influence others. If you think about all the information that different managers and stakeholders are getting at any one time, you need to stand out and put some focus on how you present. And for me, if I didn't have energy, I don't think I would have got some of my products over the line. It's really important. And related to that is uniqueness. People can interpret data differently, which will affect their message. And I like the responsibility that it puts on me or on others in this role, because you're actually involved in decision making yourself because you're enabling it. So it's not just managers or senior managers or chiefs sat somewhere putting their own lens on a decision making process. You're actually a part of that now. And it just means businesses can make better decisions. And yeah, I like all of these pillars, and they do influence my day-to-day work.
Yeah, it's also why I love talking to people that are in charge of maybe bringing some of the exuberance, fearlessness, and progressiveness into data, which is not always shared by everybody. So I think that's why, roles like yours and the things that you're doing are so important to get people excited about data, because not everybody's excited about data, right? Like sometimes it is something that's, especially when it comes to complicated things like artificial intelligence or data science or even generative AI, people are fearful, not fearless of something new. So it's great that you're doing this work. So how do you assess the current level of AI readiness across the Jaguar Land Rover workforce?
I can speak from experience here, Mark. I've been here for over 4 years now, and from early on, I was working on AI projects. It's a good level of AI readiness here. But in general, automotive is a really exciting place to be in terms of AI because some OEMs, maybe many, are on their digital journey, which creates the sense of the car being a piece of tech, like your mobile phone, and not just a vehicle. And I know that I've spoken about the connected car earlier on in the podcast, but let's talk about the software-defined vehicle. I think that will open up many possibilities for AI and will create the sense of the car being newer and relevant for a lot longer. And again, it's like the mobile phone, whose software can update. So yeah, I think it's a really exciting place to be. I'm really glad that I'm working in automotive because it just means that we're looking ahead all the time. So yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Well, looking forward to seeing what comes out in the future from the organization and the exciting work that you're doing there. Well, let's wrap this up with a kind of a section we like to call 3-2-1, starting with the three biggest takeaways from our conversation that you'd like to share with everybody listening.
So number one, how you present your work digitally and verbally are key to influencing action and delivery. So if you want your work to get over the line and if you want to make an impact, then you need to improve your presentation skills. Make sure that both story finding and storytelling skills are nurtured. And as I mentioned, are often neglected. Another takeaway is businesses need to have good data literacy, analytical focus, and governance and data management processes in play before thinking about AI. Otherwise, you might be setting yourself up to fail. And all the precursors that I mentioned, they're not small, they're very important. And then lastly, commercial and corporate awareness are not skills for your director only. Many people working in data roles could benefit from these, as I've mentioned before. So presentation skills, good data foundations, and corporate and commercial awareness are all really good things in this space.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about the number two. So 3-2-1. You've already given us a whole bunch of great pointers on Twitter and people to follow. But if you had to take just two books or podcasts to a desert island, what would they be?
So for me, just touching on the point about commercial and corporate awareness, industry awareness is a really big thing. I really like cars, which is exactly why I'm here, and I love my job and the space that I'm in. So yeah, I would take the Top Gear podcast. I've honestly learned a lot about cars and the industry from this show, and I've been watching this since I was young. When I was 16, my birthday cake was of the Stig, and yeah, I've just been a really big fan of that show. Another podcast I'll take is called How AI Built This. It's an awesome podcast by Liam Wilson. And I was a guest in that in 2020. It was one of my first podcasts that I did. So yeah, it was a really good opportunity for me. But I learned a lot from others about how they're using AI in their roles from there.
It's such a good reminder to be tuned into your industry. Of course, with cars, there's so much great content out there, and Top Gear is awesome. So great recommendation, probably for anybody, even if you're not a data scientist at a car company.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. I thought you were going to say, I thought you said How I Built This, which is a popular show here on National Public Radio, but you said How AI Built This, which is one that I haven't heard yet. with Liam Wilson. Right, we'll check that out, and all these will be, of course, in the show notes for the podcast. Okay, so like the final number one here. What is your one favorite quote that you want to leave us with?
Oh, like I mentioned, Mark, I think this was one of your early questions. I'm a Jaguar super fan. Of course, I love the Defenders and the Range Rovers and the Discovery as well, but it's that Jaguar brand and cars that even outside of work, I'm talking about all the time and reading about and fortunate enough to experience. So I live and breathe and work Jaguar, and that's my passion. So my favorite quote is from Michael Schumacher, big fan. And he said this in his last F1 race back in 2012, which I watched. But he said that life is about passions, and thank you for sharing mine. And thanks, Mark, and for everyone listening to my passions.
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. Your passions around data and storytelling and cars is infectious, and we've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you really a lot for joining us.
Thanks so much, Mark. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Janet Fields, a graduate of Correlation One's Data Skills for All program. A quick note. This segment was recorded back in 2021 when Janet completed DS4A's Data Analytics and AI program.
My name is Janet Fields. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm originally from California, but right now I'm living in Chicago, and I'm a member of DS4A Empowerment Cohort 3. DS4A is so much more than another data science bootcamp. We have access to so many resources that I absolutely was not expecting when I first joined, along with incredible TAs, world-class professors. We also have industry mentors that are data scientists like in the industry right now, as well as career support specialists to help us with any career needs we have. We also get the chance to work with companies that partner with DS4A, such as Johnson & Johnson and Target and the Match Group like Hinge and Tinder. And we get the chance to speak with them face to face. I still think that along with all of that, what I'm going to miss most and what I really, really valued at DS4A was the community that they fostered. I don't think I've ever been in such an open, honest, transparent, collaborative, supportive environment in my life. All of the professors, the fellows, the TAs, everyone was so supportive of one another and genuinely just wanted to help each other and to see each other grow. And I'm really going to miss being in an environment like that. DS4 has already opened up so many opportunities to me. The other day, my mentor reached out saying that there's a data analyst role at his company that he encouraged me to apply to. And I think that this is just the beginning. I think that I don't even realize the ways that DS4A is going to impact my life. And I can already imagine thinking back and seeing what a pivotal role DS4A played in my journey. So thank you, DS4A.
Janet's story is so compelling. Here's 3 reasons why. She found tremendous value in mentorship. Janet felt supported and guided by senior professionals throughout her journey, helping her complete the program and secure her first role in a data-centric career. Janet knew she needed more than just a data science bootcamp. The DS4A program provided her with a collaborative learning experience led by world-class college instructors that can't be replicated by a one-size-fits-all learning program. Finally, Janet thrived in a community of learners, finding joy in the success of peers. This group was tight-knit and inspired one another to succeed. So why does Janet's story matter? Workers, regardless of their experience level, want to feel accepted and encouraged as they expand critical skills like data storytelling and AI. Enterprise leaders need to find ways to identify and nurture these workers inside and outside their organizations and deliver access to mentorship, community, and effective learning methods. We close with a weekly segment we call The Big Number. We heard from Tamanna Haque of Jaguar Land Rover about the ways her team expands data storytelling skills across the organization. And we also heard from Janet about just how important it is to have access to mentorship, community, and world-class instruction. The bottom line is change is difficult, whether you're changing a company's data culture or making a career change. So this week, our big number is 980 billion. That's the estimated size of the electric vehicle market by 2028. The automotive industry is making a dynamic pivot to meet consumer demand and utilize cutting-edge technology. Enterprise leaders across all industries and functions need to apply the same mentality when it comes to expanding data storytelling and AI skills across their workforce. To do that, we need ubiquitous data literacy. We need data humanized.